Hello, it's Lauren from Wearing History blog. I am here to show you a really cool vintage dress today. This one dates to the early 1930s and it's really pretty. It's black and you can't see a lot of details when you just look at it like this. So I'm going to show you some that are up close that you might be able to use for your own dressmaking or just really cool things you can implement here and there. It's got beautiful hems, beautiful details, some pretty embroidery. It'll give you a really cool idea of what you can do to make your dress look really authentic. So I am going to show you some details up close. If you want the full pictures, you can go visit my blog for the full-length shot because they won't quite fit in the camera here. All right, I hope you like this look at this dress. Bye. The first thing I want to point out is this amazing edge that's all around this capelet. It's this really great embroidery. It's kind of like a picot edge, but it's a little bit more detailed than that. It goes all the way around, and it's got quite a wide scallop. I'll back up so that you can see more. And then it's reflected up here with a very straight line, but it's just a beautiful cape. You can turn all the way around and see that it flows beautifully from the shoulders. And while we're up close here, I want to show you that there's this embroidered fabric that's underneath. Now it looks like there were two different lengths of the same black. One is embroidered like this, and then one is plain, and most of the dress is plain, but there are some bits that have the beautiful embroidery, including the hem and up here at the bodice. I think it was a border print, so I think this was just implemented from the border print. They just took a piece and used it on the body, but you can see that it doesn't continue around the back. It's pretty plain across the back here. But underneath this really great neckline is this embroidered bit. Now, I'll wear her down again so you can take a look. And you can see again that the capelet goes around the shoulders. It flows really pretty across the back. The next thing I want to show you is this beautiful double teardrop peplum type ruffle. It looks like it's cut circular, and the edge of this is a picot edge. It looks like at one point someone has tacked these together. They would flow a little bit like a fish tail if you untack where they've done it. It goes all the way around to the front, and it was split in the front as well up here. Let's see if we can zoom in and get a detail of that picot edge. There you go. Now, most of the time you can do this by hand. There is a machine that can do this that they would have for industrial sewing. I think this was probably store made. Another interesting detail that you can't see until you lift this up is that there was a fitted hip yoke, and then it was attached in a gathered skirt. The skirt has multiple edges or rows of gathering that would help it have kind of a smocked type effect. And it continues around the back like this, but it's interesting in that they don't pay attention to where the hip line is when they put the ruffles on top. They just put them wherever they thought they should go. And then the back also has it underneath here. So that's pretty neat detail. You would think if you went to all that work you wouldn't cover it up with some circular ruffles, but it sure does look pretty. Now the waistline up here has a tie that you can undo, and that can probably pull your waist in if you need it a little bit more fitted. Like a lot of dresses of this period, there are no side fastenings. It just slips on and off over your head, which means that the waist isn't fitted because that's got to fit over the bust when you put it on. Originally, it's interesting, someone had tacked a little bit at the arm size just to pull it in closer to their bust. But we can do it like this, and it retains the original period shape of having a very straight, loose fit. Now where the collar attaches in the front is pretty interesting as well. It's kind of overlapped and then tucked. So you can see that there is this edge right here where it was open, and they just kind of tucked it in there put it where they want it. And it just gives it a little bit more interest. So it could be that the ruffles and the collar were added later, but I really think that this was just put together in this way for whatever the original customer's intent was. It could have been custom made, it could have been store made, I'm not really sure. But it is a beautiful little dress, and it really is beautifully made. Another thing with the waistline I want to draw your attention to is that this is the separate sash that ties in the front, but it's tacked around where they wanted it to look like it was artistically draped. But if you pull it down a little bit, you can see that there's a double row of stitching here. So this is a lapped seam that was, this part's folded down, then applied to the top, and then stitched. I believe I have video or photo tutorials for how to do that. But then it has a second row of stitching here. Now that could kind of serve a multiple purpose. It keeps the inside seam from floating around, and it'll keep it pressed down, but it also keeps the silk from unraveling, because if you've worked with silk chiffon, you know how ravelly it can be. It really is remarkable that this is silk chiffon, and it is in such good condition still. You don't see them that often anymore that are in such good shape. I mentioned how the bottom was a border print, or not border print, but a border embroidery, and you can see here that it really is. The embroidery stops partway down, and then the hem is turned up and just stitched to itself. Of course, that edge is turned under as well, but you can see the embroidery stops here, and then you've got all of this extra to play with. That would have been the solid. So you can see that they took a piece of this from their original yardage and applied it to the front, because it is the same embroidery pattern. It really is just lovely the way that they did that. You can find this still. You don't find it very often. Usually it's specialist stores. A lot of times it's still European made. You can also get like Chinese embroidery, but it doesn't quite have the quality. Of course, the European stuff is way more expensive, but if you have a very special project, like maybe you're making a wedding dress, maybe you're making a special occasion dress, you can search online for places. Usually bridal shops will have that sort of thing, or if you're lucky enough to live near the garment district in LA or in New York, you might be able to find something in a shop there that specializes in special textiles. You don't see them embroidered on silk chiffon barely ever anymore, but you might be able to find something on a cotton voile, on a batiste, or even on a net. So, I have one more thing I want to show you, and then we're done with this video. A lot of times the signs of a well-made garment are actually on the inside more than the outside, although if you know textiles, you can recognize a good quality textile over one that's not quite so good. In this case, this is a shoulder seam on the inside, and it has the great little feature of this lingerie strap. So you would put your slip and your bra through this and then snap it so that it's not falling off your shoulders. It's such a simple little thing, but it's something that you'll often see as a sign of a better made garment even today. And you can see that the edges here are turned and whip stitched, so it's kind of like a faux French seam. That's the shoulder seam. And then the side seams are also French seamed. And the armhole is just a really simple, very narrow rolled hem, which takes some skill if you've ever tried to do a narrow rolled hem on an armhole. It's pretty hard, so you gotta admire whoever did that in the first place. So I hope you've enjoyed the look at this dress. You can see more on my blog, wearinghistoryblog.com, and you can see my patterns at wearinghistorypatterns.com or wearinghistory.clothing. Have a good afternoon.